The Reserve Officers Training Corps, ROTC, is a program that allows college students to graduate as a U.S. Army officer. ROTC programs offer broad opportunities and scholarships are always available. Q News reporter John Hurl got a chance to look into the world of ROTC through the eyes of an HPU senior.
I am a senior at High Point University in the Army ROTC program here. What actually led me for myself would be my faith in God, and so I one day was freaking out. I'm like, how the heck am I going to pay for High Point as a journalism major? And so basically at that point, God kind of led me on a path of faith, and I started proclaiming things in faith like, God, I'm never going to be in debt. You're going to pay for every penny. I won't have to pay for any of my school. And just spoke that into existence, and God's peace came over me. Next day, I woke up to a phone call, and I usually never pick up the phone unless I know who it is on the other side. But something in my spirit said, pick that up. And so I answered it, and it was a recruiter on the other side, and they said, hey, join the reserves. We'll pay for every penny of your college. You won't have to pay any dime. You'll be debt-free. Word for word what I had said, or what I had prayed the day before, which was really exciting. The way I've dealt with the pressure of being in ROTC has definitely been a learning curve from the beginning. So when I first joined in, I have taken an average of 21 credits every single semester for the past 6 semesters. So that's a lot of time out of my hands. A lot of it was time management. I had horrible time management my sophomore year. I got an average of maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep every single night. But truly, the discipline and everything that's gone into that, the discipline and the recognition that this is my life, this is not to be played around with. And so forcing yourself to go to bed early, prioritizing your work instead of hangout time, whatnot, it definitely is a challenge. There's definitely the factor that I want to be able to go out when everybody's going out and just enjoy friends. There definitely is a pressure there.
And John joins us now. Really good job. I had a chance to watch it earlier. Why'd you make the choice to focus in only on David?
Well, I made the choice to focus in on David because when I went through these interviews, I had the chance to tell the story of 3 separate people. Mm-hmm. But as I tried to weave those, those waves through, it didn't really seem to match up. And the story that was actually more convincing was just the story of David and just the story of his faith and the story of how he decidedly, went into ROTC. And I felt like that was more impactful than trying to force together some kind of monstrous amalgamation of all the different parts.
No, it makes sense, right? Because a lot of times with storytelling, if you tell the story of one, it represents the many. So is David the exception to the rule? I mean, I'm sure they're all exceptional young people. Is he exception to the rule? Does he symbolize the overall spirit of the ROTC on campus?
Yeah, I would say that David really symbolizes just what ROTC on campus, just ROTC in the country is in general. It's just a group of bright young people who not only want to make themselves better and have that opportunity to graduate as a U.S. Army officer, but it also allows them the chance to really just grow as people.
Sure.
And so David is not really an exception. David is the standard, and David is what you see when you look at all the other ROTC people here on campus.
I asked this question as a person of faith, but I asked this question as a journalist, and speaking to a fellow journalist. Was it awkward at all for you to make the choice to allow him to speak so openly about that particular part of his life, right? In this world where some people potentially could be uncomfortable about that.
Yeah, for me personally, no, not at all.
Because?
Well, I'm a person of faith. I grew up in a Catholic home. I went to Catholic school from kindergarten through 8th grade. So faith has been a big part of my life. So when he decided to go into faith and talk about that, I was more than welcoming and more than happy to allow him to talk about that. And
Sure, it makes sense, right? Because part of all of us as journalists, we bring our own sort of life experience, and our own life experience sort of shapes our level of expertise. So certainly as a person of faith, you kind of knew the shorthand of the conversation. How do you think he's going to feel about the piece when he sees it?
I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna be happy, overjoyed. He's been hyping me up throughout the week whenever I talk about it with him, and so I think he should be overjoyed. And I think when he sees it, he's just gonna be a big smile on his face.
Absolutely. One of my standards whenever I do stories, right? Because as journalists, it's not our jobs to be fans or even friends with the people who we profile. But I always think, like, one of my goals is always when the story airs, I could be sitting on the couch next to that person and their family and be comfortable with what I reported. Whether it was glowing or critical, whatever it was the truth. It was fact-based and it offered context. So good for you. Did you have a conversation with the other students who you interviewed but didn't choose them?
Well, in my written piece, I did talk to.
Oh, so there's a written component.
Yes, there's a written component.
And where will people see that?
That would be on the Q News network on the website. So
that's a promo.
You can see it on the website. And the two other people I talked to, one of them goes to Providence, and he talked about his ROTC experience, and the other one decidedly dropped out of ROTC and kind of talked about why he decided to do that. So it didn't tend to make sense with the other story that I had going on. So I put them all in the written and decided to make just the story element about David.
Makes sense. And that's the beauty for us just as journalists, right? To have the options of different platforms to put our work on, and also gives people different places to see it and consume the information. Really, really nice report. Really nice. I just had one or two more questions. The video, the images, is that something you took or something they provided?
Actually, that's all stuff that David gave me. All the photography that you see in there and all of the video you see, that's actually done by David. That's all his photography, and he was very gracious enough as to send it to me and allow me to use it for the package. But yes, all that stuff was all David.
And final question, this is more like helping the viewers understand how the sausage is made, right? So oftentimes when we do interviews, the person isn't looking directly to camera, they're looking off camera talking to us. Why did you make the choice to have them speak directly to camera?
I honestly think it gives a more personal connection. I don't think, I feel like I could have done that same exact story, but it's framed a bit differently, and maybe he's not looking at the camera directly. It doesn't come off the same way. When you have that line of sight constantly being put onto the camera, it feels like you might get a little bit awkward. You're like, oh, this person's looking at me, even though they're not really looking at you. So it gives it that more personal. It's kind of what I was going for, that personal feel, and just kind of it works better with the story that I was trying to tell with the faith, that personal, all that kind of stuff. And it just kind of worked that way.
But I love that though, that you were intentional about that. You made choices. Good for you. Nice work.